Well, just in as the war in the Middle East intensifies, the diplomatic ripple effects are now reaching Western capitals that are traditionally close allies of Washington. The Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney says Canada cannot yet rule out military participation in this escalating crisis, even though Ottawa was not consulted before the United States and Israel launched strikes on Iran. Speaking alongside the Australian Prime Minister, Mr. Carney, is said to have described the question of Canadian involvement as a fundamental, hypothetical warning that the war could widen significantly across the region. Mr. Carney has drawn a careful distinction. He has said that the current offensive operations that were carried out by the United States and Israel were undertaken without consultation from Canada or several other allies. In fact, Ottawa, he stressed, is not a party to those actions. But at the same time, he signaled that Canada will stand by its allies if this entire situation expands or if collective defense obligations are triggered. Gauri Dwivedi tracking the significance of Mark Carney's latest remarks. She joins us live with further clarity at this stage. Gauri, the Canadian Prime Minister says the offensive strikes by the United States, Israel were carried out without consultation, not ruling out Canada's participation as far as this escalating crisis is concerned. What does this entire situation tell us about the level of coordination among Western allies at this stage? And what does Canada's involvement really mean?
Parmeshwar, two very important questions that you've asked, essentially indicating the growing uncertainty on one end in terms of where this war is headed, and also at the same time a growing realization amongst NATO allies that as this spreads, they will have to take a stronger position. Now, you very rightly pointed out that Mark Carney is in Australia. He is with the Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese when he made those comments. Both of them have so far not taken a strong position in favor of America. In fact, Carney even said that he regrets the fact that there is an Iranian attack that has taken place on Iran. He supports it with regret. Those were his initial comments that came in. This also tells Parmeshwar that where does the entire NATO really stand with regards to these strikes that started 6 days back. Originally and essentially they all said that this is something that violates the international order. Keir Starmer was also on record saying that he doesn't back this because it violates the international rules, so to say. But since then, 6 days later, the way this entire war has escalated, it has spread, and with casualties now coming in, there is now a growing realization amongst NATO allies that they need to take a stronger position. And at this stage, they are now backing America. If Canada does come in with a more stronger backing of America, you are talking about potential NATO weaponry also coming in. As I said, potential simply because NATO hasn't come out with a formal statement so far saying that they are going to back America so far. But you're seeing those voices coming in. Look at the change that has taken place in Keir Starmer's position as well in the last couple of days. And likewise, you are seeing that very not so subtle change in the position by Mark Carney as well. He started by saying, I support these with regrets, to the possibility saying that it may not be just a hypothetical question. The world knows it, Mark Carney knows it, and that's the reason why he said that there is a possibility, and if that happens, then Canada will support. So what you're looking at, a major escalation, if that happens, that it actually ends up becoming an entire NATO alliance taking on Iran, something that has...
So Gauri, with leaders like Mark Carney and Mr. Albanese discussing this crisis in Canberra, are we now seeing the beginning of a broader Western alignment strategy beyond the United States and Israel, particularly if this crisis stretches into a longer regional war, which many analysts assert it will?
Trump himself has said that this could be 4 to 6 weeks. When Pete Hegseth made those very strong comments that a U.S. torpedo has sunk an Iranian ship in the coast of the Indian Ocean, it indicates this conflict has spread. It is no more just about Iran taking or building a nuclear weapon. It is no more just about regime change. It is far bigger than that. And with it now escalating all the way to the Indo-Pacific, where Mark Carney is right now in Australia meeting his Indo-Pacific partners, so to say. So there is a growing realization. It has already spread. They will have to take a position at some point or the other. They have taken one, backing American strikes to ensure the Iranian nuclear power program completely derails. But that's where it has stopped till now. Can it be more than that? It hasn't happened since the invasion of Iraq in 2003. NATO allies haven't come out with their boots on ground, with their weaponry since then. A lot is still up in the air, Parmeshwar, but one thing is very certain, that as things stand, it is unlikely that it will remain a US versus Iran conflict for too long. American allies, the NATO allies, will end up taking a sharper position going forward.
The Senate, meanwhile, in the US, has backed Donald Trump's campaign in that crucial vote.
But also you have to understand the Senate is essentially Republican dominated. So it was expected that the Senate would back Donald Trump's efforts in terms of all his military activities. The big question is, of course, going to be as far as the larger Congress is concerned. Democrats are very clear. They want to stop this. They do not want to empower Donald Trump. More so after his executive powers were checked earlier in the month because of the Supreme Court verdict that came in on tariffs.
I sincerely apologize, I'm interrupting you. We actually have a crucial reaction coming in of the Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney at the moment. Let's just listen in to what Mr. Carney has said regarding the escalating crisis.
A broader de-escalation of these hostilities with a broader group of countries than just the direct belligerents involved. We recognize, we stress, that cannot be achieved unless we're in a position that Iran's ability to acquire a nuclear weapon, develop a nuclear weapon, and to export terrorism is ended. So that process must lead to those outcomes.